If you're tired of hearing the same old basic mindset and motivational fluff talk, you've come to the right show. Welcome to Project Me with Tiffany Carter, the podcast, where we dish on everything from managing that crazy brain of yours to manifesting abundance to my straightforward, actionable steps that will make you major money online. Now, I'm not your typical multimillionaire entrepreneur. It takes a small village to keep my anxiety and depression in check. I'm inherently disorganized with an intense obsession with office supplies. Your girl here is a digital marketing content expert who's generated over $200 million in sales. I promise by tuning in twice a week, you will get a much needed refreshing dose of truth, clarity, and cash making advice. Now let's get to it. You have two choices right now. Continue to stay stuck in the fear and anxiety of wanting more for your life and your business, and then keep stressing that nothing is working how you want it to work, and then being envious of others who have the life that you want. Or two, make the choice right now and commit to showing up and taking actions that match the life-changing big money and big impact that you've been craving for years. Because you staying wedged in the middle is why you aren't attracting the cash and clients you deserve while having the freedom and joy in your life at the same time. Stop expecting potential clients to make big investments for themselves when you aren't continuously doing the same. And I don't just mean investments in money. I mean investments in time, investments in energy, investments in your joy and your growth. This is why I have opened 2 exclusive ways to work with me, because I know that you know it's time to stop toe dipping and go to that next level. Go for those millions. Thousandaire status, that's nice, but let's go for that millionaire status. That millionaire status is when you can make the most impact, you can make the most influence, you can have the most options and change for your life and the charities you support and the people you support. I've opened my applications early for my end of summer, early fall, famous 2-month private business coaching program. I can only take a max of 6 clients at a time inside that container. And you can access that link by swiping up. It's inside the show notes. And the applications will be closing soon for my new unique 6-month mastermind experience. And this is for the entrepreneurs where you are like, I want to go for the millions. I want to get my time back, my energy back, my freedom back while scaling my business. Basically, you want to work less and make more. You want to work smarter and not harder, and learn exact strategies and systems and techniques and be able to implement them to get the actual results. And results from years and years to come with what I teach you inside that container, and getting obviously incredible support from me, my ProjectME Dream Team, any special guest experts I bring in, and the 15 people who I'm having in that container for both the end of 2022 and 2023. You get me for 2 years. So that application is also in the show notes. You can swipe up. We're starting around the 3rd week of September. And to get the details, you can go to projectmewithtiffany.com/mastermind. So I know some of you are more into having just private coaching, which is fine. You might be in that season, and that's what you feel will move the needle the fastest in your business. And some of you are like, I need that group support, that group magnitude, that group energy. Then you want to go for that mastermind. Some of you want both. So if you're doing both, which there's several people who are, I will honor the pre-launch pricing of $3,000 off. If you're a prior client of mine or a current client of mine and you are a good fit for the mastermind, I will also honor the pre-launch pricing of $3,000 off. But you're going to want to even pause this episode and go do it right now, because as soon as that container is full, and it's over 70% full right now, I will be closing those applications. It's not like I can just add in more people for that or my private coaching container. Once it's full, it's full. So go take that action. And welcome to Project Me with Tiffany Carter, the podcast and posse. I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, and this is going to blow your mind today. I've been speaking to you a lot about the evidence of abundance around you because we're being inundated right now with messages of fear, messages of scarcity. We're running into it at the grocery store. We're running into it when maybe a favorite product of ours, or you've ordered a new washing machine at your house and now you can't get it because there's a supply chain shortage, or maybe now eggs are $1 more a carton, and it can elicit so much scarcity and bring up your money wounds and money noise. And then what ends up happening is you start noticing more scarcity. So whatever you're focused on, you notice more of, and then you even attract it. And then you get in this cyclone that is not going to end well. So I wanted to make sure I had on a guest who's also a former client of mine, and she's in the posse now. And I wanted to make sure I had her on. One, she's an incredible master manifester, and she's a mind-body manifesting coach who's trained on my methodologies. But I wanted you to see the evidence of what I talked to you about so that your brain doesn't go, God, that's so self-serving. Of course, Tiffany is going to say that. I want you to really hear it from someone else and get into this conversation, because that's how we're going to stop that brain of yours from really wanting to go to that scarcity side, because it's going to keep trying to pull you there. And our job is to pull you back. So I have on Khushbu Kway. And her name is real. It doesn't sound real, but it is. It's amazing. And she came to me in the beginning, when you came to me, which happens to be, by the way, literally a year ago, and I had no idea. She just let me know before. So isn't that interesting? When I set to do my next round of podcast interviews, I sit here and I channel. I sit here and I really put it out into the universe. Like, who does my audience, who do they need to hear from? What do they need to learn? I don't always have a name that comes to my head. It might be a subject matter, and then I have to go search for a great guest. But Khushbu was one of the first names that came up, and I just got a big smile across my face, and you'll see why. So welcome to the show.
Tiffany, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited for this conversation and honored to be part of this show, as you played a huge role in my journey to get to being a solely manifestation coach.
So when you first came to me, you were saying, like, God, do I really have to niche down? I don't want to alienate or abandon or cut out people who might want my help for weight loss or nutrition help or whatever it is. And what have you discovered from embracing your specialty of your mind-body manifesting expertise?
So I'll give a bit of background for your audience as well, just so they can see where I started off from. So for a while, I was doing both nutrition coaching and manifestation coaching. And they got to a point where I wasn't feeling as fulfilled coaching my clients on nutrition, because I'd done it for a while, and let's not kid ourselves. It's more fun to change lives than it is to change bodies. But at the same time, there was a lot of scarcity and fear to just focus on manifestation coaching, because that would mean losing out the revenue I was making from nutrition coaching. And that's why I came to you, Tiffany, was how do I make the switch? How do I now restructure my business so that I'm still able to not only retain the amount of revenue that's coming in, but also go to the next level? And not only did we decide that I'm going to make the jump and just only focus on manifestation coaching, then Tiffany took me out of my comfort zone and told me, okay, you can't just focus on manifesting abundance. What does that mean to you? Who are you going to actually be serving? And again, scarcity came in and said, if you niche down, you're going to limit the amount of clients you can work with. But at the same time, the minute I got crystal clear and developed that clarity, which is a very important part when it comes to manifestation, that's when things really started to change. And that bold move to just pull the plug on nutrition coaching and listen to my gut instinct, tune into my intuition, literally took my business to the next level, but more importantly, took my overall quality of life and fulfillment levels to the next level.
Why do you think that is? Like using the principles that, you teach and that you and I have both deeply studied. How does that work for people who have maybe not gone deep enough or have not put this into practice, where you have to let go of what's no longer serving you in order to manifest and call in what you want?
So when it comes to manifestation, people associate it with solely the law of attraction. And that's just one of the many laws which determine how our reality is being created. But another huge law when it comes to manifestation is the law of vacuum, which essentially states nature hates an empty space. And so if you're not receiving what you want, you got to be true to yourself and say, energetically, is there space in my life? So that might mean letting go of a toxic relationship, letting go of a toxic habit, letting go of a toxic narrative, and whatever else is creating resistance in your life. And also, the universe doesn't take you seriously when you're in the waiting phase. And so often we're waiting for our circumstances to change until we take action. But if you really want to master manifestation, you got to take action and actually show the universe you're for real. And it's amazing how the universe leans in and supports you and provides you with the next step. But again, you're the one leading the dance. You got to take that first step.
Oh my God. I mean, I just did this last September while actually we were working together one-on-one, which is interesting because I look back at the clients I was working with just very intimately, whether people came to my 2-day mastermind or it was one-on-one, and how powerfully and quickly things shifted for them because I stepped out of the waiting phase in my relationship, which I was in. And I'm very open with you guys about it. I was in for 2.5 years. I was terrified to leave it. That's why I understand I might not have that same, as much of a fear and a charge and resistance when it comes in other areas of my life, because I just have more proof when it comes to business, right? I have more evidence because I've just done it more. My muscle's more developed in that way, my manifesting muscle. But in relationships, I mean, don't hire me as a relationship. Okay? In relationships, it's terrifying. And I remember when you hit, and all my clients hit this, all of us do. I do with my coaches too. You hit this moment where you're like, okay, like I put this out there. Is it going to work? And I remember it's terrifying, but you were open and honest about it. And you were really willing to do something different. Do you remember that time and what you did? Because that shift you had to do it internally. I couldn't make you do it. And whatever you did internally fucking worked.
And with manifestation, especially now, it's become a mainstream concept. There's a lot of conflicting advice, and that's why a lot of people turn their nose up against it. But if you really break it down, what manifestation is, it's essentially looking at your life as a complete mirror of your internal state. And if you want to change the mirror reflection, you got to first create the shift within and ask yourself, the version of me who has her desire, how would she be showing up? Because if you want to change what shows up for you, you got to change the way you show up. And it's very scary to say, well, the version of me who is solely manifestation coaching, has no fear letting go of the nutrition coaching because she knows she's able to cash in with just manifestation coaching. But then in order to create that, you can't wait for circumstances to shift until you make that move, because what you're doing, you're still showing up as this old version of you. And that's why you're perpetuating your current circumstances. And this is why I'm a huge, huge advocate of working with external support and getting a coach, because when our minds are left to their own devices, they will keep you comfortable and in familiar territory. And that's why all these fears come up, because your nervous system doesn't feel safe. But when you can create that sense of safety and security as you go to the next level, which again, like I said, it's the value of having a coach, you will find that you're able to actually take that necessary step to step into that new version of you.
Why were you able to believe me? Because I had to believe. I talk about my longtime spiritual guru, my Lebanese Tony Khushbu, with his amazing accent. I could believe him. That's why the universe brought him to me at Gold's Gym, by the way, in Southern California. Like, how random is that? I was like, who is this guy? And I could believe him because he just felt safe. He had no reason to bullshit me. Like he had plenty of people that he helped and worked with. He had already made a lot of money selling a tech company. Like it wasn't like he was I knew he just wasn't trying to scam me. I could tell he knew what he was talking about. So it was so important for me to have someone who had the receipts, so to speak, who had the proof, because I didn't quite fully believe it myself yet. It seemed kind of like, seemed almost like hocus pocus, like magic trick or something. I believed it, but it was like, is it really that simple? Because it does sound so simple. So what within you allowed you to trust me?
Are you familiar with the 4-minute mile story?
No.
So what the 4-minute mile story is, I think this was like in 1937. There was an a medical doctor who set the intention that he's going to run the mile under 4 minutes. And up until that point, I think people were running around the 7-minute mark. And when he announced that he was going to run it under 4 minutes, people were like, it's impossible. It's not going to happen. He went on to train, ran it under 4 minutes. That same year, 37 people did the same. The year after, 300 people ran it under 4 minutes. And that's the amazing thing about our minds, is that they just need evidence, whether it's from our lives or someone else's lives. And if you can find that evidence that in someone else's life who's done it, it's much easier to trust them. And as a result, start to trust yourself. And when you find that your fears, your insecurities, your doubts are kicking in, that person who's been there, they can empathize, but not only give you the strategic steps in order to move past that fear.
That makes so much sense. And it's 4-minute miles, very tangible and clear, right?
Now it is, yeah.
Right. So that's tangible. But back then, well, first of all, to me, I mean, we're lucky if I do a 17-minute mile, but to me, even a 4-minute mile sounds wild. But maybe let's go with that analogy. Let's say you're currently at a 17-minute mile and you're like, I would like to be able to take time off of that. Well, instead of going, I'm going to do a 4-minute mile, maybe you go with a number that is more believable to your conscious, where you can really go, I can get from 17 to 13, like something that feels more possible, like even doing that with money. And I know we did that. That's one of the things I do with my clients, and I did with you. And I don't remember your exact numbers. So I'm throwing out random numbers, but let's say she was at like $5,000 a month that she was making regularly. And she's, well, of course I would want, I mean, who wouldn't want all the abundant, 100,000 a month, right? Like, why not? But to do that far of a stretch, right? Our brains go, okay, that's too far away. It's too big of a concept. Okay. So let's get to 8. Let's get to 10. What's a number that feels a little more reasonable to you?
I love that you brought this point up, because when it comes to, and this is again, one of the reasons why people aren't successful when it comes to manifestation, is that they aim too high. And it's not that it's not possible, but you have to get your subconscious mind on board with it. But if you're here saying that, okay, I'm making $2,000, but I want to manifest $1 million by the end of the year, it's such a big jump that it's no surprise that there's so much resistance coming up. But if you can say, okay, I'm going to chunk it down. I will make $1 million one day, but for this month, I'm going to focus on maybe raising that to $3,000. Then next year, $5,000, and keep building it up in a place that you still feel good and are able to get on board with that goal.
Yeah. And when you were I call it in the weeds is my term. For any of you guys who ever were like a server, like a waitress or a waiter, that's the term. You guys know that term, but if you're not familiar, it's when there's a mad rush in the restaurant and you can't even like keep up. And then you have that damn table that's always, I need more wine. And then you come back, they're like, oh, do you have any mustard? And then you come back again and then they want something else. You're like, could you have asked for all 3 things the first time? Thank you. Don't do that to your poor servers. But when you were in the weeds, and I remember this distinctly. I remember it actually with all of my clients because it's such a strong point. You got to, again, I'm pulling a number from my ass, but you went from 5 to probably 8 or 9. So you had proof, but then it was like, but can I really keep this up? can I really get to 10 or 12 and make it consistent? Or is this a fluke? And then your brain started telling you some shit. So then how did you work through that?
So an exercise I do with myself and with my clients is I make them create a 2-column list whereby I ask them to identify 3 to 5 of the fears which are coming up, and then to outline what is the worst case scenario your mind is telling you right now, and what is the best case scenario that you can imagine for yourself. Because here's the thing, when we entertain the best case scenario, there's a part of our mind that's telling you you are being delusional. But if you think about it, the worst case scenario is also an imagined reality. And so by you feeding into that worst case scenario, you're also being delusional. So either way, as humans, we're always being delusional. So why not be delusional in the direction that actually feels good and aligns with what you're trying to create for yourself?
Oh my God, you guys, if you didn't get anything else out of this episode yet, that's it. Because that's, if you're giving all that energy to that delusion, the negative delusion, and no one's going to buy right now because look at the economy and people are scared and da 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 da, and you're going down that whole path. A, that's not fact-based, and B, you're putting all this energy into this story. Don't you think you owe it to yourself to put all the energy into the best case scenario?
And another thing just to keep in mind, and this is what I also remind myself when I'm going through a tough moment, because sometimes also when we're on this growth journey, we beat ourselves up that, oh, I thought I worked past this fear. Why is it coming up again? You're human. You're going to have fears because that's a self-protective measure. But in those moments, you have to remind yourself that everything you're experiencing today is a dead reality. And what I mean by that is just a manifestation of your past thoughts, your past actions, and your past feelings. But if you keep emotionally reacting to what's going on in front of you, you are essentially, through your energy and focus, you're selecting that to be your reality. But if you can make it powerless and remind yourself that my point of power lies in the present moment, and so I need to now decide, what do I want for myself, and how can I show up today, right now? Well, how can I change the way I think, act, and feel so that I'm aligning with what I want to create? And because manifestation is not a switch you decide to turn on, it's always working. Your life has no choice but to look different, because now, guess what? You're showing up differently.
One of the most common questions I get when it comes to manifestation, money mindset is, Tiffany, how am I supposed to show up as the version of myself that, you know, is bringing in $10,000 a month, 50,000, whatever? How am I supposed to show up as that version of myself when my current reality is I have a bunch of stuff I'm having to put on my credit cards, and I am like 2 months away from having to go get a job? How am I supposed to do that? How would you answer that question for the people?
Great question, because I think a lot of times it's this idea, if I want to act more abundantly, I have to go blow my money. And that's not the case at all. I would break it down to the version of me who is really happy with her financial situation. How would she be feeling? Because your feelings is essentially what is determining what manifests in your life. And the version of you who has a really nice bank balance, she feels very safe. She feels very secure. She feels very, very calm. And so even just doing more habits to help you regulate your nervous system is helping you align with that version of you. And again, is another energy behind money is freedom. Where are you feeling trapped in your life? That could be societal conditioning. That could be also not telling yourself you're not good enough, because the version of you who is abundant, she feels pretty freaking powerful. She feels worthy. She feels good enough. And that's where your job as an intentional manifestor is, how can I align with that state of being?
Ooh, I love that. It can sound so self-serving, and I get that. I can see my old self, because I can be a little like, I call bullshit out, right? And on myself,
best quality,
too.
By the way.
Thank you. On myself too, right? So when I watch, and I know you're very similar, I watch these people who are like, you know, everything I do is manifest. I manifested this pregnancy. I manifested my perfect Instagram husband. I manifested millions of dollars while barely working. And you can too, if you just learn my manifestation ways. And on one hand, there's some times where I'm like, God, that's really cool. Like, I want that. On the other hand, it is a setup for people, because you'll go buy that course or do that thing. And not to say you don't learn something, but it is so far-fetched and it's leaving out some really essential key components like the actions you have to take that you end up going, see, manifestation doesn't work.
Yeah. And I think people like that is the exact reason why I show up with a vengeance, to really put across what manifestation really is, because a lot of people are living their lives so disappointed and frustrated and helpless. And we all have the power to be, do, or have whatever we want, but just by learning how to really leverage the process of manifestation. And I'll just say it once and for all that those influencers who make manifestation seem like a sexy process whereby you just say a few affirmations, visualize, and suddenly that desire is unfolded into your reality, they're talking BS, because manifestation is a really, really beautiful process, but it includes a lot of discomfort. But if you're shying away from the discomfort that manifestation entails, remind yourself how uncomfortable you will be in a year if your life looks exactly the same.
Exactly. There is no true, lasting, profound, life-altering change in your life without discomfort and some pain. And you continually trying to bypass that, spiritually bypass that in terms of like resistance of hiring someone to help you, playing cheap with your dreams, being lazy, avoiding hard conversations, things like that. That is exactly why you're going to be in the same exact spot. You have to do the non-sexy stuff to get the sexy life.
Absolutely. And I'll be so transparent with your listeners, because I'm sure they probably face a similar phenomenon as that last year when I reached out to Tiffany. I had a call and it sounded like she could really help me take my business to the next level. And it was a full body yes. Then I went to, so what are the investment charges? She said the number and my nervous system freaked out thinking, that's nuts. No way. It's not going to happen. But at the same time, my intuition was like, she is the person you got to work with. And when I was sending my PayPal details, it was very uncomfortable. But I had to remind myself that if I'm in the same place exactly in 1 year, I'll feel terrible. And secondly, I had to lean into trust and saying, when are the times in my life where I've made it work? Maybe not financially, but in other areas. And using that as evidence that if I really want to do something, I can. And that's the amazing thing with manifestation is if you're trying to harness the energy in an area of your life where you haven't seen success in the past, use other parts of your life as evidence to cultivate that energy and strengthen that muscle.
What's so interesting is, and I had to learn this myself, I share about it often. If you are not investing in yourself, why in the hell would you expect people to invest in you? And if you're only investing yourself kind of at your kind of just toe dipping level investment, but yet you want people to trust you and lean into you and do a significant investment with you, it's not going to happen. That was my main problem in my first business and there's nothing wrong with being resourceful and Googling stuff, but I was really playing it cheap because I was scared and I was like, God, I need to make sure I get this back. And what if I don't make it back? Instead of what's my plan going to be to get it? I had no plan. And as soon as I waved the white flag and surrendered to the universe, I need your divine guidance. I am willing to invest in getting that higher level help. I'm going to trust my intuition. I'm going to trust my instincts. I'm not going to just like randomly pick someone. I'm going to be smart about it. Within months, everything changed because then when I went to go and that other business I still have, it's B2B. So it's corporate clients. So when I went to go do presentations and tell them how much I cost, which is far more than I charge you guys as independent business owners and not large corporations, I had a different energy when I said it.
Yeah.
I had a different grounded assurance and energy. My energy was like, you're crazy to not do this because I know what results I'll get you. And that's really how manifestation shows up. So you had to do that, right? I had to do the uncomfortable thing. So did you.
Yeah.
Had to work through it, had to trust it, had to trust yourself, had to put out the cash. And then my guess is you did that. You saw the results. You saw you can do it. It built that muscle within you. And then what happens when people ask you how much you cost?
Exactly. You just hit the nail on the head is, firstly, if your life is a mirror and you attract people based on who you are being, if you're playing cheap in your life, what kind of caliber of people are you going to attract into your life?
Ooh, great point.
And secondly is you have to remind yourself, and this was something which I had to do a lot of work on myself when it came to as a business owner, is a lot of times you're going to find that you get on a call with someone or someone reaches out and then they don't want to pay you. And then it triggers you. And it used to really trigger me and I would internalize it. But take that trigger and ask yourself a more empowering question. What is it within me that attracted this kind of client? Am I not investing in myself? Do I not see the worth and value in myself that someone else can? And the more you can raise your level of self-worth, the more you can show up as your ideal client, you will find now the ball has completely changed. The right people start coming to you because now you're showing up in the form of what you want to experience in your life.
1,000%. So I'll give you guys in real time example. You'll love this. So I have my 6-month new mastermind experience. So this is for a level of entrepreneur who already has made money in their business. Like someone like you've already made, like you know what it feels like to make the 6 figures, but you have a much bigger vision for yourself. You're not trying to be a thousandaire. You want to be a millionaire. Like you want that, but it's coming from like a heart-based place. So that's who this new mastermind is for, because it's a very different technique and strategy to go from making, let's just say like $200,000, $300,000 to 7 figures. It just is. So that's who I wanted to attract. So I want you guys to really think about this. I don't care what you sell, hair extensions, you're a coach, you do Reiki, whatever it is. I want you to think about this. So I started with, who is it I want to attract? And emotionally, who is this person? Okay. And then you guys have heard that before. You've probably heard people teach that. You've heard me teach that. Your ideal client, blah, blah, blah. We got to go deeper, because then I have to turn the finger and point back at myself. Is who I'm wanting to attract, am I embodying that? Am I in integrity? This goes for like friendships, your love life, where you're living, your state of being, right? Am I showing up in integrity as that person? Am I showing up and taking actions just as the woman who I want to call in for this mastermind? And I went really deep with it this time, and it absolutely shows up in the applications. Yeah. With the people that are coming in. Now I've also, and I know you've experienced this too. And it wasn't that long ago, I'd say 6-7 weeks ago, I started getting, and it was before the mastermind. I think it was when I opened something. I don't know what it was. It might've been some one-on-one coaching spots. I don't remember. And we got a bunch of applications and they were terrible. Like 1-word answers, like people writing stuff in there. I'm broke, like literally writing, I'm broke, like crazy people writing a whole list of all the stuff they're not willing to do. And it was so many people. And even if so many people's relative, I get a lot of applications because I've been doing this a while. Maybe you get 3. So just look at it. And maybe it's not applications. Maybe it's like people on calls with you or whatever, or people coming into your store. And I immediately went, okay, where am I? What's going on within me? And I was having some money stuff because I've up-leveled in my life. And I want you to talk about your whole journey to Dubai, because I know you experienced it with that. I have 2 homes now. I have a lot of money going out that is weak. My psyche wants to say is unnecessary, right? It's luxury things. It's quality of life stuff.
Yeah.
And so I have this little thing in the back of my head. Who do you think you are? You think you're like some celebrity getting weekly massages and monthly facials and living in a $15,000 a month beach house, and you have another house, like that's going on. Because I was thinking that way, I was attracting people who had a broke mentality.
Yeah. And I think we all like to think we are being authentic, but you have to realize the word authenticity means being true to yourself. And you have to really ask, where am I not being true to myself? So that could even mean wanting to go for a massage, but I'm not doing it because the voice of fear is kicking in. And here's the thing is that we think abundant energy is gratitude. And don't get me wrong, gratitude is incredibly important. But if you really want to become a master manifester, get really comfortable with who you are. Feed energy inwards. Become your most authentic self who feels really powerful and values herself. And you will see you become a magnet because, like I said, manifestation is about who you are being. And I think also, like you said, is when you can turn that finger inwards and ask yourself, what is it within me that is creating this outcome? You've gone from being a victim. So why is this happening to me? Who do these people think they are? And now you're taking ownership and responsibility and empowering yourself. And self-empowerment is one of the highest vibrations we could be operating out of.
Right. And asking yourself, who do I need to be, or what do I need to step more into in order to attract my ideal client? And that's the real work. And then to avoid and resist doing the real work, or avoid hiring Khushbu to help you through it, or someone to help guide you. Because I don't suggest going at this alone. You can, it's going to take you a fuck ton longer. It could take you years longer. So you can waste a lot of everything doing it the hard way. And maybe that's what you're used to, is doing everything the hard way. But I really want you to go, who do I need? What do I need to be more of? And not saying you're not enough as you are right now, but you need to be able to be a vibrational match for this person you want to attract. And if you notice you're very resistant to it, but yet you're saying, I still want this. I want to make this much money, or I want to lose this weight, or I want to attract this person, yet you're not willing to do the work. Well, now you're being entitled. And how do you think the universe is going to respond to that?
Absolutely. And I know for women, there's a lot of guilt about even asking to be supported. And the universe is not punishing you. It's not rewarding you. It's always just responding to you. And so if the underlying belief is, I don't believe I'm worthy of being supported, which is, again, a reason why most people don't invest in themselves or even ask for help. Again, the universe takes that as, okay, I want to help her out, but her low self-worth is actually repelling me from stepping in. And when you can now take a bold move, even though your fears are coming up, now you're feeding your subconscious mind a completely different belief. And over time, that belief is going to harden into fact. And whether it's money, friendships, a romantic partner, growth in your business, all of those are going to improve, because in every area of your life, you are the common denominator. And if you want to attract a high value outcome, and anything you want is a high value outcome because you place a high value on it, then you got to become a high value person who values herself, who is doing more to up-level herself and her overall quality of life. And whether it's your business or whatever else is on your heart that you want to see an improvement on.
Oh my God, this is so good. By the way, Khushbu has a podcast, which I didn't mention in the beginning. So where can people find your podcast so you want to have this kind of content running in your ears and your brain daily, because this is going to really keep you in that abundance zone. So where can they find your podcast?
Thank you so much for the mention. My podcast is called the Fit and Fulfilled Podcast. I'll ask Tiffany to leave the link in the show notes. And on the podcast, I chat about all things mindset, manifestation, and personal development.
Perfect. Yeah. So you guys are going to want to go there, swipe up. Her Instagram is at khushbu.ky. And you're like, how do I spell that? I also have that. You can swipe up. That's in the show notes. But if you're loving this episode so far, we're going to get into a really cool Dubai story. But if you are loving this episode, take a screenshot right now, share it in your Instagram, Facebook stories, tag me at ProjectME with Tiffany. And I will make sure I also tag Khushbu. If you're driving or multitasking and you didn't swipe up to get her Instagram, I'll make sure to reshare it and tag it so you can show your appreciation and pay that abundance forward. Because if you want people to shout you out and celebrate you and give you great testimonials and give you 5-star reviews, you have to ask yourself, am I doing that for other people? And you got to kind of check yourself, and not to put yourself down or beat yourself up about it. Just, you got to take an inventory of, am I doing the things that I really want to attract?
Absolutely. I am now, for example, I go to this workout class at 45, and they keep sending me like, can you do a survey? Can you rate our trainers? I'm like, absolutely. Send me all the surveys. I'm going to big up them so badly.
What I'll do is, because I do the same thing. And I'm like, okay, I need to do it. And then I'll be in like the bathtub. And then I'd say it's like once a month. Yeah. I go through like restaurants, cafes, and I'll just go through all of them, my nail place.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you what happens, you guys. And it still almost feels like magic to me, is without a doubt, I'm always like, you better give me that 5-star Apple podcast review. You know what I'm saying? And Spotify. I have no shame for asking for what I want. And I end up getting a ton of reviews, random, beautiful DMs from listeners who I don't know who they are. They've never even DM'd before. And that's how that works. That's that reciprocity.
And here's a little money manifestation hack, because everybody wants that cash money, is money is just energy. And it's really asking yourself, how can I put out that abundant energy? And it's not about you just donating money. Of course, if you have it, please go and donate money. But even just donating your time or donating kindness in the form of a testimonial or a review, these are all ways in which you are putting out that abundant energy. And when you get into that abundant zone, more abundance is going to come into your life, including the very money that you desire.
This is how Khushbu's on this podcast. I mean, I have had thousands and thousands of clients over the years. And this is how she's on here, because she is truly practicing and living and in the energetic state of what I teach. And she is in integrity, and her energy is therefore magnetic. And I continue to follow and support anyone. She's in my posse, right? So I continue to follow and support and connect with you guys. But whose name popped into my head first? Why is that? And you tell me, Khushbu, why is that with what you teach? Why did your name, out of God knows how many names I could have come up with in my head, yours came up first? It's not like we were like chatting recently or something.
No. So I told Tiffany this before we press record, but yesterday morning, I was thinking to write in the posse group that I wanted to just share my experience with Tiffany and how much my year has changed how much my life has changed in the past year. But I made a mental note that I did over the weekend. Lo and behold, like 4 hours later, I get a message from Tiffany inviting me on the podcast. And it's when you're doing something from integrity and genuine kindness and actually doing it without expecting anything, that energy will always come back to you. Is it always going to come back to you from the person who you are putting out that good energy to? Not necessarily, but you can live your life so transactionally. But know that this is not some woo concept that works for some people. It is the law. Whatever energy you put out, you will always receive more of the same. And so if you can start living your life from that state of how can I give, and know that in that giving energy, I will receive value. It's a given. You'll see things moving very, very quickly in your favor.
Oh, I freaking love this. So tell the people what happened when you made a big move. You made a choice and now I know you're not in Dubai. I thought you were still there, but You made a choice to move to Dubai. That's as dramatic as it gets.
So 2021 was probably one of my most uncomfortable years, but at the same time, it was also my most fulfilling year ever. And long story short, in August of 2021, at the time I was in London, but I was also living in Bombay. So I was just in London for the summer. And as I was booking my ticket back to Bombay, there was a voice in me that just was not feeling it. And as a manifestation coach, it was time to practice what I preach and realize if I'm not loving an area of my life, I got to change it. And so I sat down and meditate and really asked my intuition. I know this sounds super woo, but just trust me on this. I sat down to meditate and asked my intuition, what is my next step? Where do I go? And I came out of it and something within me was like, go to Dubai. And on paper, it made no sense because I've never really been the biggest fan of Dubai. But I was like, at this point, I trust my intuition enough. And so I said, okay, you know what? Rather than say I'm going to move to Dubai, I'm just going to go for 3 months and see how it goes. And then I take it one step at a time. I went there, ended up staying there for 9 months, decided it's somewhere I want to be long-term and loved it. And so when I go back in after the summer, I will make it a more permanent move. And the reason why I wanted to share this, because when I share this story to people, they're like, oh my God, you're so brave. How did you do it? But there was a lot of fear, but I had to really ask myself, am I going to feed my fears, or am I going to tune into that intuitive voice that always leads me in the right direction? And secondly, rather than commit to going to the end and saying, okay, I have to move there, I asked myself, what is the next best step I can take? And it was much easier for me to get on board with going for 3 months than it was to commit to saying, I'm moving to Dubai.
We don't have to do the black or white, all or nothing thinking.
No.
It can be, let's experiment with this. Let's try this out. Let's take a longer vacation there. That's what I did exactly with the beach house. My first beach house, I was like a luxury vacation rental, and it was month to month. That felt safer to me, even though I was paying more because it was month to month. It just felt safer. And then month after month after month. And then they said to me, just so you know, this is going up to $1,000 a day starting in May or something. And I was like, I'm not available for that. That's wild. Like, that's not happening. That's insane. And everything in my body said, you must have a place at the beach in this city near the water, everything. I couldn't ignore it. But then what happened? People were outbidding me for rentals. There's an inventory problem because I live in one of the most beautiful beaches in the world and the most beautiful climate in the world. People were outbidding me. I can't even make up the stuff that happened for a rental. I would go to a place and they go, well, you can come in and look, but we already rented it to Joe. And I was like, it was insane. And I could have gone, see, there's a sign. I'm not supposed to do it. I'm not supposed to do it. My head did do that. After a certain point, I saw 18 places. So at a certain point, my brain started going, see, this is a sign. This is a sign. But my body was like, this is happening. This is happening. This is happening. So your brain will lie to you, but how in your body usually doesn't. Do you agree with that?
1,000%. And that was the exact phenomenon that happened both when I was signing up to work with you and when I was deciding to move to Dubai. And one thing which I will add, because you touched upon it earlier in this episode about the waiting energy, but the day I started with Tiffany was the day before I moved to Dubai. And I could have used the excuse, oh, I'll wait a couple of months when I'm settled in and have more time, because this is what our mind will tell you. Now is not the right time, or wait till you have a bit more money, or wait till you can fully commit. But again, it's through your energy and the way you're showing up, that is what the universe is going to respond to. So if you're waiting to take action, then you better be ready to wait on your desire to come through.
Oh, that just hit some people right in the gut. If you are really leaning in and really relate to Khushbu and you're really loving how she explains things and her energy and her teachings, you can swipe up in the show notes, and she does have a couple private coaching spots available. She can only take a max of a certain number of people at a time because you can see energetically, how much she pours in, and she has to maintain that energy. So you can swipe up and that link is in there. And then my posse membership that she mentioned that she loves is also inside the show notes. We're capped at 250 members at a time to keep it intimate. So you'll have to see if there's spots when you click on the link, if there's any available. But I highly encourage you to take an action that's one step beyond your comfort zone. So of course you're going to listen to our podcast. Of course you're going to keep listening to mine because you'll be in trouble otherwise. Of course you're going to take a screenshot of this episode and share it and honor the teachings and the wisdom and everything that you got out of today and tag both of us. Of course you're going to do that. That's kind of like easier stuff, right? But what is an action you can take one step beyond that? Is it applying to work with Khushbu? Is it maybe DMing her? Is it maybe joining my posse at $100 a month? And it's month to month, by the way. And I do that on purpose because I understand how you guys think. It's month to month. You can cancel at any time on your own. You won't want to, but you can. What is that one step that you can take where you don't have to move to Dubai? You don't have to rent a $15,000 month beach house, but you will get to that point. Because we're constantly going to another level as you build that muscle, just like your 4-minute mile, right? You can't go from being the world's slowest walker, which I am, like 90-year-olds on the beach do laps around me. It's embarrassing. I couldn't go from that to even running a 10-minute mile. Like that's in a week. So you're not going to be able to get to where Khushbu's at or where I'm at in a week, or even necessarily 30 days. So don't put that on yourself. What final words do you have for the people?
My final words for the people is no matter how dire your situation feels like, you're creating your life on a moment-to-moment basis. You decide to change how you're showing up right now, make a decision and commit to it and allow life to blow you away. But remind yourself that it all starts with me. And so if I want to see different, then I got to show up differently.
I love that. You know what I was just thinking? If I were to go back and start my own business from scratch again, totally from scratch with the knowledge I have now and not being in all of the scarcity I was in when I first started, you know what I would do, you guys? And you're going to go, oh my God, this sounds so self-serving. But if you know my heart, that that's not my jam. I'm not really good at being fake. Listen to my voice. I wish I could have a good fake voice. Like I tried at the grocery store. I'll be like, thank you. Have a nice day too. I sound ridiculous, but I would have hired, and I already had my manifestation coach in Tony, but I would have done the combo at the same time of having my manifestation coach and my business mentor. And I would have been scared shit of spending that kind of money together. That without a doubt, my net worth would be at least 15 to $20 million more than it is now. I'm not joking you. If I had done that, but that's easy to say in hindsight, but at least I can share that wisdom forward. Just a thought for you, because you can do all the strategy and all the stuff in your business. But if you don't have that power of the mind, using these manifestation principles is what is going to really accelerate you at a much faster rate. Do you think I'm crazy for saying this?
I'm so happy you addressed this, because a lot of us are trying to figure out how to go to the next level using our logic. But you have to remind yourself your logic is nothing more than an accumulation of your past experiences. And if you're using your past experiences to take you to your future, you are shooting yourself in the foot, because it's impossible. And here's the thing, if we want to go to new levels, we need to try new ways of being. But again, if you've never been there, then why not work with someone who can give you the shortcuts so you can get there faster and easier?
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your stories and your experience and working with me. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor and joy chatting with you. And I really hope that your audience got some value out of this episode.
Well, they're going to show you, because guess what? Take a screenshot and you're going to tag us both. Reach out to Khushbu. I mean, swipe up. Her Instagram's in there. DM me, DM her. It's her in her DM. She doesn't have a chat bot. It really is her. She really will respond. And she genuinely wants to be there. So feel free, reach out, spread the love, spread the abundance. Wishing you great health, wealth, and worth as always. Love you guys so much. If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.